Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fieros with Tri-City Equity Group. Today, I'm excited for every episode, but I get super excited for specific episodes. So this one, I'm definitely excited to have Vaughn on the show. So today we've got Vaughn Bethell. So Vaughn's had an incredible journey going from a former soccer star, trying out for the World Cup qualifying stages with the Bahamas national soccer team. I don't think we've had any soccer stars on the show before, to making a big transition, getting over into real estate investing. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's got a real passion for real estate investing and specifically helping others. We were talking just off camera about that component. So we'll definitely dive into that here on the show. His goal and his passion is to teach others to do the same, to grow their wealth through real estate. Well, he continues, of course, to grow his business and real estate portfolio. In just 6 years, he's closed an astounding 270 plus real estate deals worth over $20 million. And he's earning recognition as the second most influential business owner in South Carolina's Latino community. I'm wondering if that's going to be the first number one. So, but here to share a story is Vaughn Bethell. Vaughn, welcome to the show.
Steve, man, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you hopping on. I know you guys have a lot of stuff going on in the Carolinas, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to share with me and our listeners. But kind of for those of us that may not be familiar with kind of your backstory, how you got started and what you've got going on today, fill us in. How did you get started? You've got a pretty awesome story. So how did you go from soccer to real estate investing? Like, take us through that journey.
Yeah, man. So I was born in the Bahamas, raised in Florida, and I got a soccer scholarship here to Greenville, South Carolina at Furman University. So that's what brought me to the Carolinas. But yeah, soccer was my passion growing up from the age of 8. My dad played for the Bahamas national team. He played in college, and I kind of took that same path and got a Division I scholarship. And the team I played for, Furman University, we were a top 20 team every year from 98 to 2001, which is the 4 years that I played. Went to the Elite Eight my sophomore year. Still got one of the best records in Division I soccer. But yeah, after college, I went on to play for the Bahamas national team. So I know people are probably wondering how I ended up playing for the Bahamas national team. But even though I've been here most of my life, I'm a Bahamian citizen as well. So I got dual citizenship, which allowed me to play for the Bahamas national team and did 2 World Cup qualifying stints with them. But yeah, going into college, soccer was my passion. So I majored in health and exercise science in college, which I ended up doing personal training and starting my own sports performance and personal training company right out of college. And I was in that industry for about 15 years. But when you start out at 21, 22 years old, and it's easy to get up at 4:30 every morning and work in the gym until 9 o'clock at night and do that Monday through Friday and then do the same thing on the weekends. But when you get older and you have kids and you're married, it's not very conducive for family life. So in 2016, I decided to walk away from the fitness industry, but I built a very successful business. And that's where I equate a lot of the success that I've had in real estate in a short period of time from that business success and learning business. So when I walked away from the fitness industry, I grew my personal training business from 23 clients when I opened up the doors to my own location to 350 clients and a staff of 14. So it was just, to that point, I was burnt out and I was not giving my family what they deserved. And I know there's a lot of people that have probably been up against the wall with that same decision at some point in time and had to make a decision. And I tell you what, it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in the last 10 years. So got into real estate not shortly after that. Actually, the first real job you could say in real estate was doing sales for a high-end remodeling company. And I did that for about a year. I was doing one call close type sales. So in-home sales for if somebody wanted a kitchen remodel, bathroom remodel, new flooring, added a deck or screen room or some sunroom or something like that. I was the one that came in their house and spent about an hour and a half. Sales is sales, right? And I was just really, really good at sales. And I did very well at that. And then shortly after that, I realized that I couldn't work for anybody anymore. That's the only company I've ever worked for in the last 20 years.
Other than that, how long did that last? I was going to say, how long did that?
Just short of a year. Just short of a year. It is about 6 or 7 months in, I realized I couldn't do it anymore. Right. So going back to just my growing up, my dad, he's a contractor. He's a general contractor. He still is today. And he's been one for 40 years. But I hated real estate growing up because my only association with real estate is if I wanted to make extra money, my dad was like, hey, you can come out on a job site and do some manual labor. And I was like, this is for the birds. So it's funny how it's come full circle that I got back into real estate. And on this side, it's from the investing side back in 2016.
Very cool. No, that's awesome. And I was going to say that that's a big jump. One, for going from being your own boss to going to working underneath somebody. Obviously, that rubbed you the wrong way enough to kind of venture back out onto your own. But I was going to ask you, that's a pretty big jump to go from, let's say, the fitness side of things to, hey, I'm just going to go do sales for a contractor.
Yeah, and it's funny because I had this feeling when I did it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna take a break from being a business owner and having to make all the decisions and all the stress that comes with that. To hey, you're just telling me I got to go show up to somebody's house, build a rapport, get them to know and trust me, and make a sale, and then I can go about my day. I was like, this is gonna be easy. But then I quickly realized that I don't control the back end of that, right? And when you're sitting in somebody's house, yeah, I'm wearing the logo of another company, but I'm the face of the company to that person that I'm talking to. And when the back end is not getting delivered the way it should have, and it was fine, everything was great at the beginning, but about 6 to 7 months in, when they weren't doing what they said they were going to do and what I was selling, and I had no control over that, that's when the tides really turned.
I got you. Yeah, no, that's actually, that makes me think of a point where I feel a lot of people do this. If you're one of the listeners and you're kind of tuning in, we sacrifice, there's something to be said, especially like that. Vaughn and I are sharing a story about being a business owner. There's something to be said for like, okay, I'm a W-2 employee, get to go clock in, I do my work, I clock out, I go home and I check out, right? It's like, there's something to be said for the simplicity, but you lose the freedom. Like you don't have, you lose control. You are making a trade because now your time is in somebody else's hands. Your time is not of your own. And so, yes, you can check in and out, but you got to be back the next day, 8:00 or whatever time. And of course, there's always going to be a cap to that, to what you can accomplish doing that. Versus Vaughn said, hey, I'm going to take ownership of this because I don't have control. I'm doing something with my words, right? I'm promising these clients the product and a service and whatever else, but I have zero control kind of after that. So I'm doing my part. I'm a cog in the machine. But as a business owner, I feel like we have an appreciation for like, man, now we got to make sure that thing gets done. That's my line. That's my name. That's my reputation. And you come to realize that's what we've got.
And at the end of the day, we have is our name and our reputation. And when you let somebody else can potentially tarnish your reputation because they're not following through with what they said they were going to do, then that's when we draw the line. So yeah, it was a good experience as well as a bad experience, but as long as we take what we learned from it and we make it better, and that's why I had to go back into business for myself so I can control the experience that our customers and clients and our partners, right, that they have all the way through the transaction from A to Z.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I was going to say too, like something else about your story, just as you're sharing. For one, a lot of people may be dismissive of, let's say, a prior career as you step into something new. You're going from being an athlete and taking that into the business world. It's like, well, hey, what do those have in common? It's like, well, a lot. I mean, like the core principles there of like, hey, you got to show up every day. You got to put in the work. Nobody else is doing it for you. So like, you got to have the discipline to be up at 4 a.m, like to put in the time, to put in the effort, to show up every day. Like there's no days off. So there is a translation of that, like to the business world. You want success, guess what? It's going to need consistency. It's going to need longevity. It's going to need showing up and putting in your best, right? So like there is a direct translation there. So that's awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about like so you made the jump now back or like into real estate investing. Hey, sales for somebody else, not going to be the thing for me. You got into investing. What does that look like, right? Is that you transition, but there's 1,000,001 different ways to make money in real estate. If our listeners, if you've heard different episodes on that, we've had so many different people on the show doing different things, different facets of the business. What field did you go into? Like what part of real estate did you go into?
Well, it's interesting because I didn't really know anything about real estate investing when I first got started, right? I had a friend, actually my wife's best friend, and our daughters were best friends as well. And she was always at the house, or we were at her house, and she was doing some flipping. She had just got into flipping and she had been doing it for about a year or 2 years. And I was just kind of living vicariously through her. She had built a rental portfolio over about a 20-year period. And so When I was doing the sales for their high-end remodeling company, we kept talking. I was like, hey, we need to do something together. We need to do a flip together, whatever. But once I finally got to that point where I was done with that other company and I was ready to venture out on my own, we partnered and started the company that I own today, REI Junkies. And the funny thing is when we partnered and decided to jump into it, we didn't have a ton of capital. So we had to figure out how to make some money without having any money. So the quickest thing that I learned how to do was to do wholesaling, right? And so we started out as a wholesaling company, and sales and marketing is my thing. I've done that since, since I could walk, I feel like, but at least since I was 15 years old. But I started doing driving for dollars, and I primarily work in the single family space right now. And yeah, I do have a couple Airbnbs and have been invested in some multifamily syndications and things such as that. But we would go drive around properties looking for the ugly home in the neighborhood, looking for the distressed properties, take a picture of it and send a postcard. And that's how we got our first deal. It took us about 4 months to land our first contract off a postcard. We closed on it 30 days later and made 30 grand just by signing the contract. And I was like, game on, right? Yeah, I was like, I just made 30 grand just by matching a seller with a buyer, really. And so we did that, and we were very successful. The next year, we ended up doing, I think, 18 deals. And for me being the entrepreneur that I am, I ended up buying my partners out after a year. And so I've been running this company myself. And then the next year after that, I think we did like 60 deals. And we went from $300,000 in revenue to $1.3 million in revenue. And that's when I realized that, hey, this is a very lucrative business that can spit off a lot of cash, but it's very transactional. So I had to figure out a way to start building some generational wealth, some cash flow. And that brought me more to where we are today, which is a lot of owner financing, lease option, and rent to own, primarily with the purpose of providing a pathway to home ownership. And we do that not just as an investment strategy, but truly as a way to get people in homes and put them in a position to refinance us out within 1 to 3 years.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And yeah, we were starting to talk a little bit about that off camera. And,
Yeah.
what an awesome way for one, hey, you developed a skill set, wholesaling. And it's a lot of ways a lot of people start out that way, right? Like fix and flip or wholesaling. It's not for everybody. I will say that.
Not for everybody.
Yeah. So the cool thing is Vaughn recognized like, hey, I'm good working with the people. And a lot of, again, when you start up wholesaling, you're going to have to interact with a ton of people. As I can tell you, you're going to have 100 conversations just to get a small percentage of that actually pencil or pan out to be something, right? So you took what effectively was like, hey, this is my strong suit. Like you're able to identify that, and all right, I'm going to run with that.
Yeah.
So now you parlayed that into, okay, hey, we're going to take that into wholesaling, but then you also realize like a lot of other parts of real estate, they are transactional. If somebody's doing, let's say if they're a mortgage or loan officer and they're originating loans, or they're a real estate agent and hey, my money is just about selling houses or fix and flip. Again, it's all super transactional, just like you said, right? And so you have to get into, hey, no, how do we develop residual cash flow? How do we build wealth? And really you're only going to do that by holding on to stuff, like by actually buying hard assets, especially now, like the amount of inflation and money printing they've done, that's only going to continue. So if you're listening to this, you don't own any property yet, like you need to own some property. You need to own some
Absolutely. Own some assets.
Yeah. So how are you teaching people now? Like obviously you're doing owner finance, you're helping them to kind of get started. Because what's the benefit of that? Because a lot of these people that you're working with, maybe they're not in a position to kind of qualify for a traditional mortgage. We were talking a little bit about that off camera. So how can they go about doing that?
Yeah. So, as we were mentioning earlier, I was talking about how my first house, when I bought my first house back in 2006, like the banks didn't want to see my income in my paper because I didn't really have any. I was self-employed. I didn't pay myself a W-2, hadn't had quite 2 years of tax returns yet, but I made more money than my wife, right? My wife's a law enforcement officer. She's a sheriff's deputy with the sheriff's office here, and she's had a steady paycheck, steady W-2 for 25 years. So they would rather see hers, and we were only able to buy the house based off of her papers and her income, right? And they let me add up a certain percentage of what I claimed just on top of it, right? But there's so many people out there that are self-employed that are in the same situation, but they have a down payment. They can afford the monthly payment, but they just might not be able to prove it through W-2 or tax returns. But they can prove it through bank statements and other things. So there's a thing that when we do our owner financing, we have to still underwrite them to stay compliant with Dodd-Frank, and they have to meet the ability to repay requirements. So they have to get that certified ATR stamp. That's requirement of Dodd-Frank. But yeah, we're able to at least get them in a home and stop renting and start owning. And like we mentioned before, for most people in the United States, the beginning of generational wealth is homeownership. So we don't want to rob them of that opportunity. And yeah, they may pay a little bit more interest for a short period of time. They may have to put a bigger down payment. They got to have more skin in the game. But guess what? They're not renting anymore. And right now we're selling at about a 12% interest rate, which sounds high to a lot of people. But the reality is when you're paying rent, you're essentially paying 100% interest rate. It's going nowhere. So the fact that we can get them into a house, get them to a point where they've got equity in the house by putting a down payment on, they're making some payments, so they got principal pay down, but also the house is starting to appreciate. So now they're starting to build wealth. And then by owning the servicing company and running it through a third-party servicing company and making sure that we're doing our underwriting properly, 12 months of payment history through a service company, that same bank that would turn them down for the original or their origination of the new loan will now snap up a refinance like it's nothing. We've been the ones that take the risk, and which is why we get paid for taking our risk.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's just all like value creation, because just like to your point before, like these are typically going to be people that it wouldn't be able to, like, hey, you can't go down to Wells Fargo or Chase or whoever to go get a traditional mortgage. It's literally not an option.
Yeah.
And so now you're creating value, you're providing value by helping set them up for that. And you're kind of going the extra step too, like as a servicer, like you're going that extra step of say like, okay, well, what are you going to need on the backside? You're going to need this history of being able to show that you've been making the payments. Like you're helping them to develop. Hey, I know what the bank wants to see on the back end. When you go to, buy us out, when you go to refi and within that period, right? We know what they're going to want to look at. So we're going to package this together so that you're going to look good now to the bank moving forward. Right. Exactly. And again, just like you said, you're providing value. So you're going to get compensated for that. And that's a huge value, because now, like, hey, after that 12 months or a couple of years or whatever, now they own that house. Right. Yeah. Now they're able to move forward and continue to build equity, build wealth. And got to tell you guys, like, if you're a listener and you don't own property, you don't own hard assets, like that's literally going to be that can be your life raft, right? Like
absolutely.
As inflation goes up, right, that's eroding the purchasing power of your dollar, right? So what hedges against that is going to be owning hard assets, or owning a house, owning your own house, right? Owning any real estate, any other type of hard asset is going to help you to rise. It's going to float with that inflation, right? So this is why the value of your house increases over time, especially when we're in a high inflationary time. The value increases because, again, it's a hard asset compared to currency that's being devalued. So if you don't own something, get into something. If you don't know how to do it, that's why we're talking to Vaughn, and you can reach out to him after to see if that might be the right fit for you, right? So
absolutely,
awesome.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome. So what kind of is this something too? Like obviously you got a couple of different companies, you got REI Junkies, and then you've got your servicing company.
Yep.
Like, is this something that people can plug into, like in terms of a community, or is this just like, hey, you know what? No, Vaughn, I'm looking for a place, and how do I do that?
Yeah, so if they just follow REI Junkies, that's where that's kind of the umbrella company, and everything falls underneath there. But the REI Junkies, our main company, is focused on that pathway to homeownership, right? And in that pathway to homeownership, we help 3 different avatars, I guess you could say, right? So we still do the wholesaling piece, and I say wholesaling in the fact that it's not necessarily, hey, we're assigning the contract, because we assign contracts to ourselves, just another entity, right? But we're still going direct to seller. We're still talking to sellers, helping them out of whatever situation that they may be in, right? So we're a solution provider for them. So we're helping sellers on a daily basis. We're locking up 6, 8, 10 contracts a month to help a seller out of a situation that they're in and they need to be out of, right? And then we're also helping our buyers or borrowers, because these are people that can't get traditional financing today, but they still want to be homeowners. And we have 3 core beliefs with our Pathway to Homeownership program. Core belief number 1 is everybody should be a homeowner that wants to be and can afford to be, right? Core belief number 2 is everybody deserves a nice place to live as long as they're willing to and able to take care of it. And core belief number 3 is the person that's paying $2,000 a month in rent will much rather pay $2,000 a month to own, right? So these people over here that fit those 3 core beliefs, which we have a waiting list of, we're helping these people because traditional banks won't give them an option. And then that third avatar or person that we help is our lenders, our capital partners, or what we call private money partners, right? Because when we're doing owner finance and things such as that, we can't go get traditional financing either, right? And even hard money is for short term. So we're looking for people that want to invest money for 2 to 4 years or longer. And most of the time that comes from private money, right? And so we have a lot of lenders that they're looking to have their money in a place that is not only getting great returns, but it's secured. And then the biggest thing that really has made a huge difference and has set us apart is having that social impact or that charitable impact. So it's doing good, right? So not only are they getting great returns and they have security, right, by a real estate asset that they can go see, touch, and feel, but their investment is actually doing good by helping people become homeowners, which just that one thing alone is helping to revive communities. And the person that owns, there's a pride of ownership. And if you have a neighborhood full of renters or a neighborhood full of owners, there's a difference in those two neighborhoods. So they're
100%.
having that social impact and they're doing good as well. So, and we don't think there's a better combination of where you can invest, get a great return on investment, have a high level of security, but also do good in the community. So,
Yeah, no, wonderful. And like I said, like as I'm listening to your story or listening to kind of even how your value proposition for really like multiple people along the journey, right?
Yeah.
And again, this is all about value creation. So it's like, if you take a look at your business, it's like, okay, I'm able to provide value here, here, here. I'm servicing this segment of the population, this segment of the population, this segment of the population, the homeowners, right? The community, right? Because they're going to get better as you have more homeowners, right? As the percentage goes up of homeowners versus renters, to your point, they're going to take care of the property better because guess what? Like they're paying to own it. They're not going to be, hey, I'm leaving next year, so what does it matter? I don't care what the yard looks like, right? Or I don't care how much the house is taken care of. It's not mine, right? Versus if you're a homeowner and you're like, no, this is my heart and money. My name is on the line for the loan, and I am paying that $2,000 a month or whatever it is. Like, dude, I'm going to take care of my yard. I'm going to take care of the house because I want it to look good. Like this is a reflection of me, right? Like
absolutely
of my family and my work. And so that can only help to increase the value of the neighborhood, help to revitalize the neighborhood if they've had lower percentages of, like, let's say, ownership. You're also providing value on the investor side, right? Because then, hey, I've got capital. I'm looking to park this thing. It's, yes, the returns are better in the bank compared to what they've been, which is usually just junk.
Yeah.
But you're able to like go far beyond that. And also to know that you can make a good impact, right? Because this is also people that are, you're effectively acting as like bridge debt or private debt to help them hold on to it for a little longer until they're able to refi out or whatever on the back end. So no, I love that multiple facets of value creation, right? Which is amazing. Now, too, like, is your focus, and I know you're based there in the Carolinas, is your focus specifically in those markets? Are you going outside of different states, or what?
So as of right now, we're in the upstate of South Carolina, which is the Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson County areas. And then we're also in the Midlands of Carolina, which is Columbia, South Carolina area, right? And that's our primary markets. We want to make the biggest impact in our communities that we live in right now. But as we're growing, we have this big, hairy, audacious goal, or our purpose, cause, and passion that we talk about. And that goal is to help deliver the dream of home ownership to 500 families by 12/31/2030, right? And we still got a long ways to go to do that, right? Up until this point, we've done 32 families and homes. And that's with a big emphasis being on that in the last 18 months. Now, that is starting to grow significantly as we're doing 2 to 3 and sometimes 4 of these a month now. But 2 years ago, we were only doing one every couple months. And so now that we've put that emphasis on, this is our primary exit strategy, this is our primary focus when it comes to investing, and this is our primary purpose, cause, and passion that gives us the feel goods, right? That gives us the motivation to get up every morning and do what we do. And so because of that, we've transitioned to this being our primary exit strategy, and that 500 number is a real thing. And we know in order to do that, we may have to expand outside of our primary market.
Well, I mean, like I said, I really love that. I love that you've gone vertical kind of with, like, let's say, the servicing company and gone the creative side, because now that let's say when you're a wholesaler, because I started off as a wholesaler, so I totally understand that. And those of you guys that are listening in that are your flippers or you're wholesaling too or whatever, like you have a buy box. So it's like, well, hey, my buy box is this, right? And it's if you're a wholesaler, it's got to be palatable. It's got to be marketable to, for one, for you to make money, but also too on
Yeah.
the back end, it's got to, hey, is this a good candidate for a flip? And if once I pass this on, once I assign this contract over to somebody, like, can my back end flipper, can they make money off of this? Right. Because if they can't make money off of it and your numbers are off, it's not a deal. Right. But coming into this space, you're able to provide some additional value because you're like, well, it actually doesn't need to be necessarily just in that little limited buy box. Right. I used to run across a lot of deals that were like, gosh, I'd love to help you, Mr. Homeowner, you're behind on your payments. Like, you're in a tight spot, but you don't have the equity to do anything. You don't have the equity for it to make sense to a flipper. Well, in this case, you don't need to be, like, you already have it in buyer, right? Like, perfect. Like, the house looks like it's in good shape. Like, you have an amazing interest rate. Guess what? Like, we can have somebody take this over for you. We can have another wonderful family and continue to live in this house and provide them an opportunity, right? It doesn't have to be
100%.
beat up. So I love that. That's great.
Yeah. And the thing is doing like a subject to deal or something like that, even with our sellers, that's a big thing that we say on the front end. And as a wholesaler, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is just openness, honesty, and transparency. We're very open and honest on what we're doing at the forefront, which unfortunately some wholesalers aren't, but that's what we do. And they like that. They like that their home, that they're, whatever situation that they're in, could help somebody become a homeowner, right? To be able to do a sub two deal, right? And help explain to them how their house now, it might not be the greatest fit for them anymore. They might be moving on to a different phase of their life, but there's another good family that's going to be able to come in and live in that same home. And we're helping give them an opportunity or a foot in the door to realize that dream of homeownership. So,
yeah, no, I really, really, really love the amount of, for one, like, options. We were talking briefly about this earlier, right? Where it's like, well, hey, there's 101 different ways to make money in real estate, right? And really and truly, there should be like 101 different ways to provide value in real estate, because it doesn't all have to look the same, right? What works for you in your market may not work for me in my market and whatnot. But the more tools that you have in the tool belt, right? We can go creative. We can go wholesale. Hey, you need a quick set. Cool. Like, we can do that, right? Oh, this is going to be a fix and flip to this investor. Wonderful. Like, that actually looks like that's going to be the best strategy for this one. No. Hey, this one is, look, I think this is a prime fit for the homeowner, like, to get homeowner to homeowner effectively, right? You're kind of just facilitating the transaction. And just to you said too, there's a lot of people that I know, like, I mean, I've had these conversations, again, just being a wholesaler before, they don't want to sell to an investor, right? So even if they are in a pinch and they need to get out of their deal, they don't want to deal with you, right? Like, oh, you're going to flip my property. No, I don't want to do that. No. I totally get that. Like, we want to try and put another family into this house so they can continue to take care of it. And so I love that multiple tools and multiple options that you can give to them. And again, like, you're providing value to as a whole, right? So
absolutely.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And I don't know if you ever heard I don't know if you ever read the book, The Go-Giver, right? By Bob Berg and John David Mann, right? And their biggest thing is the more value you provide, the more value that'll come back in your return, right? The 5 laws of stratospheric success, and it's all about value.
Always.
So,
Yeah. That's what helped me to, for the longest time, as a man of faith, I grew up thinking, oh, money's evil. And it's like, well, that's a passage in the Bible that's kind of taken out of context. And so it's like, well, no, business is a good thing because business is a God thing. It's like, business forces interaction between people. And it's only about, you're only going to get compensated for the amount of value that you're able to bring to the table. If you don't bring value, guess what? You're not compensated for that because you brought nothing that's worth an exchange. There has to be an exchange, the exchange of resources or an exchange of service or goods. And so, like, if there's no exchange there, then okay, like, there's no value creation. So if you're not where you want to be, if you're listening in and you're like, oh, Steve, I'm listening to your conversation with Vaughn and, oh man, that's so far beyond, this guy's done how many transactions, I can never help 500. It's not about that. You need to look, okay, how can I create value where I'm at? And how can I look at my situation, my skill set, the tools that I've been given to learn how to create value? And that's,
and to each his own, right? And you always hear the comment or the phrase, comparison is the thief of joy, right? And if we're always comparing ourselves to what other people are doing, we'll never be happy. But what can make us happy, right? And what can we give, right? What value can we give? And for every person, that's going to be different.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm always a big fan of, again, kind of talking about the faith component, the comparison of people to being parts of the body. It's like, well, if you think of yourself in that way, it's like, well, I'm a part of kind of a larger organism, right? I'm a part of a larger being, right? It's like, well, hey man, my leg has incredible value as a soccer star. Man, you ain't a soccer star without your feet and your ankles and your toes and your core and your back and the muscles and everything else that's involved a part of it. It's literally not just one thing. It's like, nope, everything has to be
100%.
operating at peak performance or else you're not there. And so
Yep.
you look at yourself the same way. Okay, well, how can I be the best piece of the puzzle that I can be to create kind of this beautiful tapestry, right? And you got to find your fit. So
Absolutely.
yeah. No, I love that. Well, this is a point of our show where we kind of transition to what we call our fire round. Just a little bit more brief Q&A, kind of brief answers, a little bit something lighter, a little more fun. Is that something you're up for?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Awesome. All right. First question. What is the best book? I mean, you're already given us one book recommendation, but what's the best book recommendation that you can give other than The Go Giver, or for a lot of us, it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be just real estate. It can be whatever.
Yeah. So one that's really speaking to me a lot right now in this year is Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz. I don't know if you ever read that, but one of the biggest things I've learned this year was redefining our definition of scale, right? And Mike talks a lot about this in the book. And when you think of scale, and when most people think of scale, what do we think of? More, right? A lot of times it's more people, it's more properties, it's more money, it's a lot of different things, but it's more. And a lot of times scale, and his definition of scale, is more profitable and more efficient. And sometimes when you look at it from that angle, sometimes it means scaling down. Right. And that's specifically from a business standpoint, but also it could be personal, right? In life as well. Right. And a lot of times when we try to do more, we spread ourselves way too thin. But how can we be more efficient and more profitable in our personal lives with our families, right? Or with our significant other. So that's one I highly recommend people read. And it's focused around business, but if you take those same principles and apply it to life as well, they have the same meaning. So.
Yeah. No, okay, that's great. I'm definitely gonna check that one out. I love hearing recommendations that I have not heard before, and we've heard of quite a few on the show. So,
well, most people know Mike Michalowicz as Profit First, right? But yeah, that's a really, really good book, Clockwork, that he's put out.
All right. Yeah. Awesome. I appreciate that. All right. Next question. What would you consider your superpower to be?
Man, I'm a people person, right? And you give me a few minutes with anybody, I can definitely build a rapport, get people to know, like, and trust me. And so I look at it as a superpower.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a superpower. It's, like I said, you're not doing the volume that you've done and the amount of business without people knowing you, liking you, trusting you, and building rapport with people. That's a necessary skill set, very necessary. So yeah. All right, awesome. All right, next question. If you could go back in time, you had a time machine, you can go back to you're 20 years old again. What advice would you have for your 20-year-old self?
Ooh, that's a good one. Learn more from your elders. And don't think you have the answer to everything. Because when we're young and dumb, right, we always think, even though we hear some feedback from our elders or people try to give us advice, and we feel like we have this thing as we got to go figure it out on our own, right? But I look at coaching, mentoring, and masterminding as buying speed. And I've really learned that by surrounding myself with other people that are where I want to be, right? That buys me a lot of speed by not making the same mistakes, and then taking what they've already done that's proven successful and implementing those same things into what I'm doing. And it's going to get me to where I want to be a lot faster.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. I love that. Even just that terminology, right? Like to think of it in that way as to buy speed. I remember when I was younger, really looking at that as like, well, this is just, if I'm looking at some kind of a mentoring or coaching or paying for something like that, it's like, well, it's almost like it's an admission of failure on my part, right? Like I can't do that because that's saying that I don't know it. And it's like, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. Like that, guys, you can pay for coaching from somebody who's been doing it for the last 20 years, right?
100%.
You're paying for their knowledge. So you're effectively buying speed.
You are buying speed. And that's one of the things is like, you always hear, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? You want to be the dumbest person. And I actually coach a high-level mastermind right now. I've done business coaching for the last 15 years, whether it was in the fitness business or now in real estate. And I guess that's one of my superpowers is like, I look at business as the 80-20 principle of business, right? So the 80% of business is systems, tools, processes, and people. And then the other 20% is subject matter. And that's why I've been able to come into the real estate space and be somewhat successful in a short period of time. But I also look at everything that you do. You got to buy speed. You got to surround yourself with people that have done what you've done or where you want to be and buy that speed. And I used to be almost embarrassed to tell people how much money I've spent on coaching just as I got into real estate. But I've spent over $300,000 on coaching and masterminds in the 6 years I've been in real estate. And that has the return on investment is exponential. So I'm a big believer in buying speed, and that's going to the people that have done what you've done and getting their systems, tools, and processes and their knowledge. And it's going to speed up the process of where you want to be tremendously.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And like that, I can guarantee you don't have the goal of, let's say, helping 500 families get into home ownership without that,
Absolutely not.
without being surrounded by people who are also thinking big, right? Who are also like, yeah, no, my goal is this. Maybe, and I've had this happen to me multiple times where it's like, gosh, my goal is, man, my BHAG is to help 100 families. Well, hey, why not? Well, if you're going to do 100, why don't you do 500? You know what? That's great. We can do 500. Like, why not? If you can do 100, why wouldn't you be able to do 500? Right.
Exactly.
So, and again, like just being in rooms with people who think bigger, right? And have a little bit of, have that wisdom, have that insight just to push you that little bit down the road. Like it can make all of the difference. So I love that. It's also amazing to think too, like how, as big as sports is, and I feel like you'd appreciate this, like having come from high level sports, like we see this, like the NFL is massive, right? Like it's a multi-billion dollar industry. Like same thing with soccer globally, right? Or basketball, or really any of the major sports. We totally accept that those guys have coaches, they have trainers, right? They have dietitians, they've got people like kind of handling all these different facets of their coaching, right? So why do we accept it for them and know that puts them on the biggest stage, right? Like that puts them in front of how many countless hundreds of millions of people, or however, think about like the last Super Bowl, how much visibility does that have, right?
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Those guys are not on that stage without having paid for the coaching and the mentoring. And this is, again, this is not to like shill for anything or like, but it's just really just the concept. Those guys are not there without having had people who, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've seen coached countless top tier athletes, right?
100%. And here's what I love about, what I really love about what you just said was like, if you look at those guys, look at your Tom Brady's, your Tiger Woods, your Michael Jordans, your LeBron James, all those guys, right? They don't have just one coach. They don't have just a coach that coaches them on their team, right? They have coaches in almost every area and aspect of their life, right? And for us as individuals, we might not be a professional athlete, but we need coaches, we need mentors, and we need wisdom in every aspect of our life. And for me, I got business coach. I also have a spiritual coach, a health coach. I mean, you got multiple coaches that are experts in what they do, right? There's no jack of all trades when you want to perform at a high level, right? And so I highly encourage people on here, if you don't have a business coach helping you to get to where you want to be in business, definitely pursue that. But beyond that, in whatever aspect of your life that you may be struggling with or not at where you want to be, I mean, coaching and mentorship is huge, and it'll take you a long way, and it's going to speed up the process tremendously.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100% agree with that. No, that's great. Well, Vaughn, if our audience wants to reach out to you, they want to learn, hey, how can I be involved? If I've got capital, I want to put it to work, or maybe I've got deal flow, or hey, I'm in your market and I want to be involved with what you got going on. What are the best ways for them to get in touch with you or plug into what you're doing?
Yeah, easiest ways, you can go on our website, which is reijunkies.com. I'm most active on Facebook and LinkedIn. So Vaughn Bethell, VAUGHN. Bethell. I think I'm the only one on both of those sites.
And we'll make sure we include the show notes, the links down in the show notes. But if you guys want to reach out to Vaughn, hit him up on a couple of platforms and reach out and touch base. Well, Vaughn, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. I appreciate our time together. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to come on and share your wisdom, your experience so far to this point. And I'm excited. I want to have you back on and see what kind of progress you're making towards helping those 500 families and getting there. Or if you're like, no, Steve, we're going to revisit. And actually, we were on such great track. We bumped that up to 1,000, and we're going to do that by 2030 instead. So,
I would love to be back on, and who knows, that might happen in a lot sooner than later.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on today, and go out, take some action, have a great one.
I appreciate it, Steve.
Thanks. Aloha. Well, an awesome conversation with Vaughn Bethell with REI Junkies. He's doing some awesome things on the creative side. What a cool story, going from being a professional athlete, professional soccer star, to now providing hope, wealth building, an opportunity to homeowners, and of course, providing value and opportunity to investors as well, just providing value on multiple fronts. So super cool, great guy. So definitely reach out, connect with him over at REI Junkies. Guys, if you're interested in connecting with us, you can go to tricityequity.com to learn more about previous deals that we've done, the things that we've got going on now. If you want to network with us, meet us in person. We've got a monthly meetup that we have here on Oahu every month. We have a great turnout every month. Would love to connect with you, meet you in person, answer questions, and just network with other like-minded investors. If you want to level up your game, it's a great place to do it with people who are looking to grow both their network, but their professional life, their personal life. It's just an awesome turnout. And guys, if you're finding value in the show, we'd love a 5-star review. We'd love you to share the episode. We want to continue to bring on bigger and better guests, and so we can only do that if we're getting that positive feedback from you guys. So make sure that you are sharing the episode and leaving us a review. Well, that's going to be it for today, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Go out, take some action, and we'll see you in the next one. Aloha.